This is Marketing Jam, a show featuring the brightest minds in marketing.
Brought to you by Canada Post. Head to canadapost.ca/insight podcast for ideas to add value to your marketing.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Marketing Jam. Again, huge thanks to Canada Post for making this happen. If you don't have a copy yet of Insight Magazine, you probably want to get them shipped to your house these days. But again, a nice table kind of book that you can have out on your coffee table. You can read it. You can use it as cutouts and make collages during this time. But make sure you get yourself a copy. It's got incredible stories, case studies, and facts and stats about what's happening with marketing. And what I love the most about it is you open up right to the end here. There is a case study right here on a mail campaign that happened in the UK. It's inspiring. It's bizarre. It's weird. Every episode, every kind of magazine that comes out has some weird and bizarre things that make me stop and think. So thank you, Canada Post, for making this show possible and for putting out a magazine that I actually like and read and don't just use for collages. So without further ado, I want to welcome Conner to the show. Conner and I actually know each other. We both are at agencies right here in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. So I know Conner personally, so this is a rare gift when someone comes on the show who I've seen in real life and in person and in the flesh. And we do these lunches every once in a while with different agency owners across Vancouver. And Conner is always I call him like the provoker. He's always got provoking thoughts and questions and opinions. Again, his reputation known specifically as an expert in the industry of tourism, how organizations can also do live events, two of the things that Conner's known for, amongst many other things, as just a peer in the industry that really gives back. So thank you, Conner, for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, buddy. It's good to see you. And I wish we could do more in real life meetups right now. But I guess this will have to do. Big fan of the show, by the way. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. So, Conner, we see websites of agencies, Junction. We've been to the site, we know about you, but what does your day-to-day actually look like as someone in your role, and what Junction actually does for brands around the world?
What does a day in the life look like? That is a question. As I'm sure everyone can empathize with right now, this changed a lot. But in general, so I call myself a consultant. My team, we're a team of consultants, and that probably makes it even more ambiguous. But we do a little bit of everything from we're presenters, where sometimes we step in, we're like acting CMOs, sometimes we're therapists to executives, we're trainers. But in effect, if you really kind of like boiled it down, is we go into an organization, we help them to figure out like what are they up to, what are their goals, what do they try to accomplish, and then we build a plan for them to get there, and we equip their team to do that through a series of strategies, presentations, training, and workshops.
So if a brand's like, hey, Conner, can your company run my Facebook account for me? Do you do that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So this is what I don't understand. There's so many agencies that are quote unquote full service and they live and kind of make revenue by that. And that's how they become these big, large shops. Like, how has it been for you to say no to work when it sits there right in your face with this big kind of steaming pile of money that you could be getting?
Yeah. And this is kind of comes down to our core reason for being, right? And I'm sure that everybody has this issue where there's like all these different things we could do. We can sell this product, we can bring on that service. And about 5 years ago, we sat down and we figured out like, why do we, overwhelmingly, it was this idea that we had splintered as an ecosystem. Digital marketing had grown up very quickly, and we had an SEO shop, and we had a social media company and a website company. And executives were sitting there being like, I think everything's working pretty well, but I don't really know. There was nobody inside the company driving the bus. And at the same time, like the guest or the customer, they were out there and they'd get one message on the website, one message on social, another one in their email. We just saw a very fragmented ecosystem, and it felt incomplete from the guest perspective, but it also felt like it was inefficient. Like companies were spending all this money and doing all of these things, and nobody really knew, like there was no one single source of truth. So what we figured out was the reason that we exist, like the reason that we get excited about work, is helping businesses build that capacity. We call it digital from the inside out. And it just fundamentally, it means that you might still work with agencies. We love referring business over to Jelly. Jelly's awesome at what they do. You might still have contractors or freelancers, but at the core, fundamentally, the business knows where it's going. And we find that agencies love that too.
Okay. So in a sense, you provide the strategy, the roadmap, kind of the big picture, and then you kind of get out of there, or do you end up staying and kind of providing that kind of support along the way, or what's that look like
Well,
after?
yeah, the idea is that we sort of hand it over and everything's beautiful and the world is an amazing place and people can run with it. But as we know, things are always changing, priorities shift, new products, new markets. And so very often we end up sticking around and we sort of go on to be advisors. We'll sit in on the big quarterly marketing meetings. We'll provide reporting and oversight, or even like we'll help to write briefs or select agencies. So yeah, we're really just there. And this is what I love about my job now is that, in the old days, I came from running a creative agency and I'd always felt like we're sort of like fighting against our clients, right? Like we're trying to sell them products or sell them services and convince them to do a thing. Now I'm friends with my clients. Now, we're partners. If something goes wrong, I get a call being like, hey, Conner, what can we do about this? How do we fix it? Versus they call their agency and be like, hey, agency, we need you to fix it. You know what I mean?
Wow. So instead of being antagonistic, you actually you can actually do some kind of like, hey, here's 3 options for you. Here's why I think this one is kind of ABC.
100%. Yes.
But what was it like? Give me that early days, and those that are listening and watching the show, those early days in the boardroom or with a client, and they're saying, Conner, can you do this for me? And you having to say no, or you feeling like your agency made a decision to say no to that. What was that like emotionally and even operationally for you?
I mean, it's a challenge. Like it hasn't always been that our client roster was full. It hasn't always been that we had all the work that we could take on. And so for us internally, it was hard sometimes to look at that billing and say no to it. Talking to that executive though, I never had trouble because I never said no, right? Like I've surrounded myself with a lot of really talented people who I love bringing in on projects, love passing on, because honestly, I know that the people who specialize in those skills are going to do a better job than I or my team could do anyways. So the client's going to be better off. They're going to be better off. I'm going to have developed a better relationship with the client. So if we think about the long game, it becomes really easy. If we're thinking about this quarter, yeah, sure, sometimes it's tough. But if we think about where we're going in 1 year or 5 years, that's a really easy call for me to make.
Wow. And tourism, how did Junction kind of get into the world of tourism? Like, you're putting on webinars now, you're supporting this industry in such an incredible way, but like, how did you kind of get introduced to that vertical?
Yeah, so we're chameleons to a certain extent in that we get super nerdy about something and like research the heck out of it, make sure that we have all of the data and the insights in the research. And what ends up happening is as we pull at that thread, we become experts in a space. And so we were fortunate to work on a project with Destination BC about 4 years ago, where we partnered with them to help to deliver training and empower businesses across BC. And in doing that, we probably led somewhere in the neighborhood of a couple hundred workshops across my team and I, and still doing it and working with tens of thousands of operators. And so in doing that and the work that sort of came out of that we became the experts sort of in Canadian tourism. And so at this point, yeah, the majority of our work is in Canadian tourism, but it's certainly not exclusively so. We all also find a lot of need and opportunity in retail, especially right now, like retail transitioning to e-commerce. So like fundamentally, we work really well with any organization that wants to take control of what they're doing. It just so happens that we have an extensive experience in tourism right now.
And tell me about your experience in live experiences for different brands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's funny about we look at this as kind of our hidden superpower. It was about 7 years ago. I'd say maybe our largest client came to us and they said, we love the idea of doing live town halls. We want to be able to stream this to all of our clients, or sorry, not clients, to their internal stakeholders, so their staff, their managers, et cetera. And we were like, this is 2012, 2013. We're still saying yes to just about everything. And so we're like, yeah, sure, we'll figure it out. We're, transparent with them, but like the internet was so early in those days, we were figuring everything out. And we were fortunate to have one really amazing partner who had done this in the past, and they helped us along. We just kind of, learned by trying, and like month after month. Originally, the whole purpose was to be that we were going to set up the capacity inside that organization to run their own live streams. And they just found that it was better to bring somebody in. And so we've just been helping them to do that ever since. And, we've been very careful about opening that up to new clients because, for a few different reasons. One, it's not really scalable. Running live streams for clients, you have to like drive there and you have to have people, etc. But what we've known all along is, as doing this, we've become experts in this.
Yeah.
We've been through every potential mistake and crash and just these horrible moments that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. But every one of those has been a learning experience. And what's been amazing is that now that, we have to be online, and now that like digital is everything, now everybody is looking around going, how do I do live? And so it's been an interesting time because I feel like there are a lot of people trying stuff and being creative, and that's amazing, right? Like, heck yeah, go for it. Like be creative. But I also feel like there's a lot of people who, maybe like your brand deserves a little bit more professionalism and making sure that you know what you're up to. So we've been pretty busy, to be honest with you, helping everybody from like educational institutions to large brands to fitness groups figure out this whole live thing. I think it's amazing. Honestly, I hope it sticks around after we go back to work.
And when you started, were you using GoToWebinar back in the day, or what was the tool of choice back in the?
I'll shout them out partly because they've now been acquired, but Livestream has always been our go-to. So livestream.com. We use them for years. They've now been acquired by Vimeo, so things have changed a little bit there. But for somebody who's looking for a professional solution, something that can go out to thousands and thousands of people, that's what it's really high quality.
Okay. So Zoom isn't just our only option at this point.
100%, and like we can get into the weeds on this, but like I love Zoom. This afternoon I'm going to be doing my own webinar using Zoom for a few hundred people. I think Zoom is awesome, and like it's brought us closer together in these very strange times. Instagram Live is great sometimes. Vimeo is good. YouTube Live is awesome. Good old fashioned GoToWebinar works. There's kind of a tool for every job out there.
Yeah, I did. Someone did not want to do Zoom yesterday, so we went on to Cisco's system that's set up. So it was a nice download. It was fun and it worked. But everyone's kind of got their go-to that they like,
if you will.
Yeah. So for you, kind of next steps as far as like work and just life in general, what are you seeing kind of coming down the pipes? What are you excited about during this time, maybe that could give some of us hope in marketing?
So I love that people are just moving fast. I love that brands are trying stuff. They're being creative. I can't tell you how many times I've sat down with somebody and they've been like, I've had this on my desk for 3 years and now we're finally doing it. These ideas that we've had that we've wanted to put into motion, now there's no reason not to do it. I mean, for example, my own webinars, like I write an email every week. It's great. I've read a lot of articles. It's awesome. But I've always kicked myself and been like, I should be doing this live thing that I tell everybody about. And now sure enough, we're doing it and it's going great. But beyond that, what I'm even more excited about is I feel like we have this like messy middle time. Let's use a startup phrase, but we have this messy middle time where everyone's kind of like figuring things out. We're being very scrappy. As we start to return back to business, though, I think that the brands that were paying attention, the brands that were being really creative are going to be the ones that win. And we've been talking a lot with our clients about this concept of day zero planning. And not to go all consultant on you, but day zero planning is like this idea that there's going to be a moment when we start to reemerge. Now, it's not going to be all at once, of course, but there's going to be a moment when we start to like come out of our cocoon, if you will. And there's going to be a lot of brands that have planned ahead and they know this is our content. This is how we're reintroducing ourselves to the world. We've invested in our community during the hard times. So they're going to be rolling, right? As people back into the office. And then pretty much everybody else. And like, we know that, people don't prepare as much as we would like to think that we do. But pretty much everybody else is going to be scrambling. They're going to say, oh, shoot, I didn't see this coming. When like, of course it's coming. Like we know that eventually the market's going to come back, whether it's 6 weeks or 6 months or 2 years from now. So what I'm excited about is for us to like test and try and be creative, but then start to build that into a real plan that we can use for day zero.
Wow, I love that term. I've used it a few times since I heard you say it, day zero planning. And because it not only does it give me hope when I talk about it, but it actually helps kind of put a line in the sand of, hey, what can we do? And have we prepared to bring hairdressers into our retail operation to provide free haircuts for people? Because that's going to be the number one need, I feel like.
Yeah, and steal it, use it. Everybody, I encourage you to pass it around because, and this is my I guess my anxiety and my hope is that our economy, whether it's travel and tourism or retail or whatever, is great because we have like these cool little businesses, we have creative shops, we have people like trying new things in general. It's not amazing because we have Amazon and Apple and the big names of the world. And so what I'm optimistic about is that these people will emerge on the other side. But what I'm, I guess, concerned about is that we're, only the large will survive. And so my mission, if you will, right now is to be pushing people forward and say, like, let's go, like, let's plan forward, let's be creative, let's do things that are going to make it so that more of us, small businesses come out on the other side.
And maybe even stronger. Like we have work with a cocktail brand that did cocktails at events and high-end cocktail kind of experiences. And I've talked to them a while ago about doing a subscription cocktail box, and I hope they would one day do it. And they're now this whole forced them to do it now. Now you can get a weekly subscription of a new cocktail sent to your house that you make in your own home. But I think, and then if it emerges, they'll have two different revenue streams instead of just one. Thanks to this whole,
yeah, there's no reason why what makes us strong right now couldn't then continue to exist when our core business is back.
Yeah. And tell me about Earls, what you've been seeing that they've been doing with their sommelier and kind of wine master.
Yeah. I've just been, I'm a huge Earls fan. They're not a client. I'm just like, I've been a lifelong fan. I sort of spent my late teens, early 20s, thank you to my ID, in Earls, the Tin Palace in North Vancouver. And what I've watched happen is like it become a very, very cluttered marketplace, right? They were only semi-differentiated against the Cactus Clubs, Joey's, and et cetera. And at the moment this happened, they did a few things. One, they took care of their people. They stepped up. They continue to pay people. They've been really good to their what we call internal stakeholders, the most important group. And then they went out and they started to support their suppliers, providing grocery delivery. Now, Earls, and I don't know their books, but I can't imagine they're making almost any money on grocery delivery. But what they know is all these suppliers depend on Earls for their own businesses because they work with a lot of medium-sized suppliers. And then the community side of things, and this is what everybody sees, right? This is the case studies that we read and the videos we pass around is, they're doing live wine chats. So they've got this hilarious, weird, interesting sommelier who will just go on and he'll hang out with you for about an hour and he'll just talk about wine. And like, he's got a bit of an agenda prepared, but he's got an amazing host who sort of leads him through it. And he like educates and he chats and everybody at home is drinking wine too. And what I think is brilliant about it, besides the fact that he's just great on camera, is that what they understood is that what people get from Earls is that, sense of being together, even if it's with strangers, that like having a cocktail with a crowded room of people and who knows who's here, maybe I recognize somebody. And you kind of, in a weird way, have that on Zoom. There's about 300 people on this wine chat. Yeah, and they're all just like hanging out together in the chat. He's responding to questions. And like, it was the closest thing that I've ever felt in this strange time to like actually going out to a bar. And like, I thought it was, from a brand perspective, a really strong move for them to understand that this is what people were missing.
I got invited to come on to like a marketers club, kind of clubhouse hangout time online. And it ended up being, I was chatting there, but no one would respond. It was just two people who had an agenda to talk at me. So I love the fact that there was actually interaction and connections and some love.
And this is honestly what we're advising clients right now when it comes to live and have been for years, is like the first question is, why is this not recorded? If you don't have a good answer for that, like this, for example, this is recorded and it's great. And you can do a little bit of editing and people can rewatch it or re-listen to it. Like, perfect. There's no reason why this has to be like, we could do a live version. We could do some Q&A, bring people in, maybe have a guest drop in every once in a while. But like, if the client or the business can't answer the question, why isn't this recorded? It should probably be recorded.
Interesting. So tell me about this. Where do you go for like ideas, inspiration, and kind of like to keep yourself in the know? Because I think what's happening now is that, in a sense, we're overwhelmed with marketing knowledge, right? Like there's so many e-newsletters we can subscribe to, so many videos we can watch, so many webinars to go to, that even some that say they're one thing, but they're another. But like, what's the filter you use and what would you recommend to our viewers and listeners?
Yeah, so there's kind of two sides of that, right? There's the, we'll call it sort of technical side of things. There's like, how are the platforms evolving? What are they doing? I like to go straight to the source. I read the Facebook blog, I'll read the Pinterest blog, go to Ahrefs and read what the nerds are talking about. Love you SEO nerds, but you're nerds. What they're talking about as it relates to SEO. And so there's that side of things. And I think that if we're going to do that, if we're going to make that a part of our practice, we need to get the most real and raw information that we can, and not get the sort of like the 300 word condensed version on somebody else's blog. And then the other side of it is, and what I call empathy, and I didn't coin that phrase, obviously, but empathy in that it's this idea that we need to understand how people are actually using this stuff. And I think the mistake that we've made is we'll read a blog post or listen to a podcast about this amazing new technique where we can sell 1 million of something, and we need to ask ourselves, like, is that how people are actually using the platform or the technologies? Yeah. To me, empathy is about like, let's make sure we're staying up with pop culture. We know what meme culture is. We know what the people who are following are talking about. So like that's a messy answer, but I think in general, if we're going to be good at this stuff, we just need to be constantly curious. We need to be following people on Twitter. We need to be reading newsletters, and I'll shout out my own because I love writing it. It's called The Brief. Write it every Monday. I kind of like take all of the things that I'm seeing in the world and filter it through like, this is why I think it's important. People agree with me sometimes, they disagree with me sometimes, and that's my favorite part of it. So if you want to sign up, brief.wearejunction.com. Got to get that call to action in. And so I love emails. The Hustle is also great. I love reading like Benedict Evans' email. He's a VC. So I just think curiosity and like constantly collecting information is the go. And if we want to be technical, going straight to the source.
Yeah. I actually, your e-newsletter and Strategy Magazine are my two favorite e-newsletters I get every week. I find them both full of actual knowledge that I end up sharing with others. And they're the two newsletters that I'm like, I actually have my staff all subscribe to as part of like, hey, this is the real stuff.
Thank you.
And there's no agenda in it, which I love as well. Like you're not trying to sell me a conference. You're not trying to like upsell me on something. You're just trying to say like, hey, here's the latest goods, and you actually dissect it. And it is big. So I definitely disagree with some stuff because you get opinionated, which I like that you actually have opinions though. You don't just give the facts. You're like, hey, this is what I think is what this means. So awesome.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite Mondays, I send it every Monday. My favorite Monday is when I hit send and I hit refresh and I have 5 emails from people being like, you're an idiot.
That's great. No, it's a great e-newsletter. I find it very rich. So thank you for taking the time to do that. It's an incredible resource for all of us here.
It's my pleasure. And yeah, it's like I love doing it. But I mean, like, I think if we're going to take a lesson out of things like that is that, there isn't a direct call to action. Like I can barely correlate the emails that I send out to new business, but what I can draw a direct correlation from is the amount of people who come up to me and email or hey, I told my wife, husband, business partner about Junction because I read your email. And so it's not like we're not having people knocking on our door because we're running promotions in our email, but it is that sort of property that is maybe the most valuable thing to our business right now.
Oh, that's awesome. And advice to other brands and marketers right now, what's kind of like the things that you're saying, hey man, hold on to this, or what are you kind of giving kind of your time to and energy to?
Yeah, so what I've been advising people to do right now, anybody who still has the ability to be doing business is, most of us are, so we're going to be in some sort of reduced capacity. So my advice to them is always like, how do we solve different problems for the same audience? Because what I see a lot of businesses do, and I think this is a mistake, is trying to find a new audience, trying to find a new industry or a new way. But like right now, people don't want to be introduced to new brands and having to like figure out what they are and like build trust. People still exist. They're sitting at home. They need entertainment. They need education. They need products delivered. So it's like, how do we solve different problems for the same audience? And then the other thing is like, we need to be playing offense because, and this is what I've been thinking about a lot, is that like one of two things is going to happen at the end of this. Either our businesses, and you and I are both business owners, so either our business is going to survive and it's going to thrive, or not. Right? And I'm not going to plan for option 2. I'm going to plan for option 1. Right? And there are some businesses that, through no fault of their own, are going to fall into option 2. They're not going to make it out of this, and I feel terrible for them. But I think what we can do right now is we can play offense. We can be doubling down on the things that people love about our business. We can be providing additional value for our clients. Like, and just a micro example here is like Revelstoke. They're telling everybody to stay home. Revelstoke Mountain and Revelstoke Tourism, but they're like developing their community by having this like sense of nostalgia. They just had 400 people send in their favorite moments in photo form from Revelstoke that they missed, right? Like, it's like, how do we continue to cultivate that community, and how do we play offense so that we have something to come back to when the market turns?
And people need something to do besides, whatever. Tiger King's going to run out. TikTok video, they'll eventually get tired of TikTok videos. So, what can you get them to do?
100%. Yes. Yeah. And like, I love that we're, seeing brands for what they are right now. There's a famous quote from the Buffett group, which is like, when the tide goes out, we find out who was wearing pants, right? And we're kind of seeing that right now, right? Like Earls very much has a brand, has a community. They're doubling down on that, right? We're seeing brands like Lululemon are doubling down on their ambassador community and doing an amazing job of it. And whereas like some of the other businesses are going like, well, if we can't sell stuff, why do we exist?
Yeah.
And like that's the problem.
Wow. Conner, this was incredible. Thank you so much for being on the show. I always learn something every time we talk, and just even being a wallflower in the kind of agency owners lunches, I always love watching kind of your thoughts and your questions, and it always gives me lots to think about. So appreciate you giving the time on the show. All the live webinars that you're doing, make sure you follow Junction, get on their e-newsletter list. I love it. The brief comes out every week. All right, Conner, have a great rest of your day at home in your very cozy home. Thank you for inviting us into your house today.
Thank you, Darian. That was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Thanks everyone for joining us this week on Marketing Jam, and we'll see you next week on the Jam.